In the hush of time, before clocks, before kingdoms, before the first stones of cities had been laid upon the earth, there were voices moving through forests and fields, softer than the breath of the wind, yet older than memory itself. They told of a world where the fabric of life was not random, not scattered, but woven with care, as if the whole universe was a loom in motion, stretching endless threads of light and shadow across eternity. Those who listened closely, beneath the canopy of birch and oak, swore they could hear it, the low hum of spinning wheels, the distant beating of a cosmic shuttle passing back and forth, binding one soul to another, binding one fate to the next. In this world of whispers, the people of the Baltic lands lived by rivers that gleamed like silver veins, by meadows trembling with wildflowers, and beneath skies that stretched as deep as longing itself. They were not untouched by hardship, nor were they free of desire. Love bloomed among them with sudden intensity, like fire igniting on dry grass. Loss followed just as swiftly, like rain pouring without warning. And yet, through every joy and sorrow, they felt something greater moving, an invisible current beneath their lives. For nothing, they believed, was ever truly chance. From the moment a child's first cry split the air, a thread was spun. Fine as silk, glimmering in unseen light, it stretched outward into the great tapestry where all human stories interwove. Some threads shone golden, promising wealth and sweet abundance. Others glowed silver, promising tender love and the ache of yearning. Some, darker still, trembled with sorrow, betrayal, or loss. But no thread stood alone. Every life was tied to another, twisting, looping, and tangling in patterns that no mortal eye could fully see. Those who gazed long into the night skies sometimes felt that same truth in the constellations. The stars themselves seemed threaded together, arranged not by accident, but by the same hand that guided their lives. Farmers believed the grain that rose strong from the earth did so under guidance. Lovers believed the moments when their lips found one another in the dark were whispered by unseen voices. Mothers believed the health of their children was bound by something greater than prayers alone.
What was this presence that seemed everywhere and nowhere? Who guided the loom that wove existence? The people never spoke the names aloud in the open fields, for such power demanded reverence. Instead, they carried the knowledge in their hearts, offering silent thanks at riverbanks, leaving gifts at sacred groves, or whispering small words before spinning their own wool at night. They knew, in some hidden part of their being, that their lives brushed against the touch of two unseen weavers. It was said that one moved closer to the soul, to the secret longings of the heart, to the fragile flame of love and the uncertain steps of desire. The other was felt in the body, in the hands that sowed and reaped, in the weight of coin, in the fullness of harvest, in the hunger of those who had too little. Together these two unseen forces shaped the entirety of mortal existence. If one was absent, the other could not hold. For what is wealth without love, or love without the stability of sustenance? The myth begins here, in that liminal space between mystery and revelation, where the loom hums quietly, yet its keepers remain cloaked. For though mortals could sense them, though their presence brushed against every kiss, every hunger, every cry of joy and despair, the true names of these weavers were not spoken yet. The air held the tension of secrecy, as if the very act of naming them would disturb the delicate balance they maintained. Imagine a night beneath the Baltic stars, the river flowing like molten silver, the forest alive with unseen movements, the meadow heavy with the scent of late summer blooms. In that silence, broken only by the call of distant owls, one could almost feel the threads stretching outward, invisible yet undeniable, tangling around wrists, binding lovers together, pulling wanderers home, or cutting lives short in the sudden cruelty of fate. There was no escaping this loom. To live was to be woven. To die was to be folded back into the cloth. The myth whispered of moments when the veil between worlds grew thin. In those nights, people claimed to glimpse shapes moving along the edges of their vision, women cloaked in light and shadow, their hands forever in motion, their eyes vast with knowledge too deep for mortals to endure. They did not speak with voices, but with gestures, with gazes, with the brush of fingertips against invisible strands. And yet somehow, people understood. In dreams, the weavers came, and with them came the certainty that one's life was not their own to command entirely. Desire might burn, but its path was guided. Fortune might tempt, but it was never earned without their silent decree.
This was the paradox that defined existence. Freedom and destiny, love and loss, yearning and surrender. And within that paradox lay the sensual pulse of the myth itself. For every human heart longed not just for survival, but for touch, for closeness, for the intoxicating sweetness of passion. And every hand that reached for another trembled with both joy and fear, knowing that somewhere, someone, or something decided if that touch would endure or if it would be torn away. The myth's allure lay in its intimacy. These were not distant gods who thundered from the sky or roared from oceans. No, these presences were near, almost tender, slipping into the smallest details of daily life. They were felt in the slow unraveling of a braid, in the shiver of a candle's flame, in the rhythm of footsteps approaching or fading away. They were in the silence between two people before lips met, and in the emptiness left when one never returned. Thus, the introduction unfolds not as a proclamation, but as a seduction. The story does not rush to reveal the names of the weavers. It lets them linger in mystery, like a touch withheld, like breath at the back of the neck. For in holding back, in cloaking them in shadow and silence, the myth draws the listener deeper into yearning, deeper into the desire to know. Who are these presences who spin fate and fortune? Who decides if love flourishes or fades, if wealth grows or disappears? In the Baltic world, life was fragile, and so was love. The loom could give, and the loom could take. Yet within this fragility burned the beauty of existence itself. To live knowing every joy might be fleeting, to love knowing every kiss might be the last, to desire knowing it could unravel into loss. This was the essence of what it meant to be human. And it was precisely this essence that the weavers cherished. For without fragility, without longing, the threads of life would lose their brilliance. So the myth begins with silence, with mystery, with threads glimmering unseen in the darkness. The loom beats steadily, endlessly, like a second heart hidden beneath the world. And though their names remain veiled, the presence of the weavers, those sisters of fate and fortune, moves through every breath, every gaze, every fleeting touch. Their story has not yet unfolded, but already their influence is felt, a sensual promise suspended in the air, urging the listener to lean closer, to crave the revelation that is still to come. For only in the telling of their tale will the true depth of desire, longing, and destiny be revealed.
There are moments in every story when the mystery begins to part like morning mist, when shadows take shape and voices grow clearer, when the unseen becomes known. The myth of the weavers is no exception. For though their presence lingered in whispers and dreams, though their hands were felt in every woven thread of life, there comes a time when they step into the light of the tale. Their names are spoken, their forms described, and their essence unfurls like silk before the gaze of mortals. They are Laima and Dahlia, sisters not by blood, but by the eternal loom, partners bound by the delicate and unbreakable task of shaping existence itself. Laima, first of the pair, is the one whose name carries the weight of breath before prophecy, the tremble of lips just before a fate is spoken. She is the goddess of fortune and of destiny in its most intimate sense. To call her sensual is not to confine her to the body alone, but to recognize the tenderness of inevitability, the way she bends close to whisper futures into the ears of newborns, of lovers, of kings and wanderers alike. Her presence is a touch softer than air, yet no hand can resist her guidance. She does not rage or roar. She does not command with cruelty. Instead, she leans close like a lover in the night, her breath warm against the skin, and tells the soul what awaits it. There is no refusal. Her gift is as delicate as a kiss and as unavoidable as death. Laima's beauty is not of the kind that blinds. It is subtle. It lingers. It seeps into the marrow of those who encounter her. She is the quiet glow of candlelight on woven fabric, the hush of snowfall in the depth of winter, the sigh that escapes unbidden when one realizes that love, no matter how fleeting, has found them. Her hands are soft but firm, forever spinning the gossamer threads of fate, forever entwining one life to another, forever binding joy with sorrow, love with loss. When Laima gazes upon a child, her eyes shimmer with futures unseen. When she touches the heart of a woman in love, her fingers leave imprints of both bliss and longing. When she approaches the dying, her voice is a lullaby that soothes the spirit into surrender. She is inevitability wrapped in tenderness. Beside her, yet never beneath her, moves Dahlia. Where Laima weaves the intimate and unseen, Dahlia anchors existence in the tangible.
She is the goddess of wealth, not merely in coins or treasures, but in harvests, in labor, in the sweat of brow and the bread on the table. If Lima whispers to the heart, Dahlia presses her hands into the soil, into the fabric of human survival. She is sensual in a more earthly way. The curve of hips as she bends to sow grain, the gleam of sunlight on her skin as she walks the fields, the warmth of her body as she leans close to mortals and grants or denies their abundance. To encounter Dahlia is to feel the pulse of the earth itself, the steady beat of growth and decline, the hunger and satisfaction that define the human body.
Her beauty is rooted in fullness and strength. Where Lima glows with mystery, Dahlia radiates with vitality. She is the scent of wheat ripening under the sun, the taste of honey on the tongue, the weight of a lover's embrace after labor is done. She does not move in shadows, but in daylight. Her presence undeniable, her choices immediate. She gives generously, yet just as swiftly she can take away. Those who prayed to her did so with trembling hands, for they knew that in her touch lay the power to bless their homes with plenty or to leave them barren and empty. To feel her fingers pass over a household was to feel one's body ignite with gratitude or with despair. Lima and Dahlia are not rivals, though the world might imagine them so. They are partners, bound not by similarity, but by necessity. One weaves the thread, the other clothes it in substance. One whispers of what is to come, the other ensures that it is felt in the flesh, in the fields, in the hunger and fulfillment of the body. Together they hold the balance of existence, heaven and earth entwined in their ceaseless labor. To remove one would unravel all, for without Lima's thread, Dahlia's wealth would scatter without purpose, and without Dahlia's abundance, Lima's fates would wither unfulfilled. And yet, as with all unions, their harmony carries tension, for Lima is drawn toward the intangible, toward love's sigh and sorrow's tear, while Dahlia is bound to the tangible, to bread and shelter, to wealth and loss. They are sisters, but they are also opposites, leaning toward different hungers, different desires. In their contrasts lies the seed of conflict, though it is a conflict as sensual as it is inevitable. When the myth describes them together, it does not paint them as distant deities seated upon thrones. No, it shows them as women in motion, weaving side by side. Lima's fingers glide through threads of light, her gaze soft, her lips parting as though murmuring secrets to the loom itself. Dahlia sits close beside her, her hands steady, her body strong, drawing those threads down into the fabric of the earth, into homes and hearths. Their shoulders brush, their breaths mingle. Sometimes their eyes meet, and in that meeting lies both harmony and unspoken tension. They are partners, yes, but also bound by desire. Desire not only for the work of creation, but for the closeness they share. The intimacy of two eternal beings joined in a task that touches every human life. The people who told their story imagined them this way, as sisters who could not be separated, as lovers whose bond shaped the world, as weavers who balanced all things. And perhaps it is this intimacy, this closeness between them, that made the myth so alluring. For what is more captivating than the thought that fate itself is woven not by distant hands, but by two beings bound together, gazing into one another, touching, brushing, entwining their movements so that love and fortune, passion and wealth become inseparable. Lema and Dahlia embody more than just roles. They embody the dual hunger of humankind. Every heart longs for love, for intimacy, for passion that transcends time. That is Lema's domain. Every body longs for sustenance, for comfort, for the touch of security. That is Dahlia's gift. Together, they are the mirror of what it means to live, to desire with the heart, and to hunger with the body. And so the myth presents them not with loud declarations, but with imagery that seduces. Lema's hands upon invisible threads, Dahlia's body bending over fields rich with promise, Lema's lips at the ear of mortals whispering futures, Dahlia's breath warm upon the skin, granting the sweetness of abundance. They are sisters, they are partners, they are contrasts, and they are balance. Their harmony is fragile, their unity sensual, their bond unbreakable, yet trembling with desire. And it is within this delicate union that the seeds of the story's conflict begin to stir. For even in the most perfect weave, tension gathers, and when desire burns too brightly, even sisters of fate and fortune cannot escape the pull of longing. Every balance, no matter how delicate, carries within it the weight of its own fracture. Harmony is never still. It trembles, it breathes, it aches with the possibility of change. For Lema and Dahlia, the eternal sisters of fate and fortune, their closeness was both their strength and the root of their unrest. To weave together was to share the intimacy of creation, to press shoulders against shoulders, to let breaths mingle as their hands moved in tandem. Yet closeness breeds awareness, and awareness sharpens into difference. It was not long before their visions for the tapestry of mortal life began to pull against one another. Lema, ever tender, leaned toward the hidden desires of the human heart. When she wove, her threads shimmered with longing. She yearned to fill lives with passion, with encounters that left bodies trembling and souls aflame. To her, the true measure of existence was not how much grain filled the storehouse, but how deeply two lovers clung to each other in the night, how tears could taste as sweet as kisses when born of love's ache. She whispered futures heavy with yearning, the chance meeting of strangers at dusk, the fleeting brush of lips that would change lives forever, the sudden fire of devotion that burned against all reason. Dahlia, by contrast, moved with the rhythm of the earth itself. Her threads did not shimmer in mystery, but pulsed with weight and substance. She longed to see families fed, fields heavy with harvest, children growing strong beneath the shelter of sturdy walls. To her, passion without sustenance was folly. What use was love if hunger gnawed the body? What use was a kiss if it was followed by despair? She yearned to give mortals stability, permanence, wealth not only of coin but of comfort.
Her loom sang of bread warm from the oven, of hands calloused from honest labor, of homes rich with abundance where desire could unfold in safety rather than vanish in ruin. These visions were not enemies, and yet they strained against one another like opposing tides. Lima's fire burned for fleeting passion, for moments that shattered routine and flared into memory eternal. Dahlia's strength pressed toward permanence, toward the quiet satisfaction of roots planted deep. When their gazes met above the loom, when their fingers brushed over the same thread, their differences kindled sparks not only of duty, but of something more dangerous.
For within their bond lay more than contrast. It held desire, sharp and unspoken. Lima's eyes lingered on the curve of Dahlia's shoulders, on the strength in her hands as she pulled threads taut. Dahlia, for her part, could not ignore the softness in Lima's voice, the way her lips seemed made for whispering secrets too intimate for mortals. The loom did not only weave human destinies, it wove the threads of their own longing, binding them in ways even they could not always untangle. Yet with intimacy came envy. Lima envied the solidity of Dahlia, the way mortals turned to her with offerings of bread, with prayers for wealth and sustenance. They saw Dahlia's gifts plainly, felt them in their stomachs and their homes. Lima's gifts, though profound, were fleeting, invisible, often cursed as much as blessed. Lovers who burned brightly might also burn out. Passion that seared hearts could leave them hollow. Did mortals ever thank her for the ache of love as much as they thanked Dahlia for their harvests? And Dahlia, though anchored in strength, envied Lima's mystery. She watched how mortals trembled when touched by Lima's whispers, how they cried out in joy or in sorrow under the spell of her threads. Dahlia gave them fullness, but Lima gave them fire. Dahlia's abundance could fill bodies, yet Lima's whispers filled souls. The envy was not cruel, but it was undeniable, simmering beneath their closeness, making every brush of their hands along the loom an unspoken question: whose gift mattered more? As time stretched, the loom became not only a work of creation, but a battleground of subtle wills. A mortal's thread would pass through Lima's fingers, gleaming with the shimmer of sudden passion, a kiss destined to ignite at a midsummer feast. Yet as it reached Dahlia's hands, she would temper it, grounding the fire with a life of steady labor, of hearths well kept, of love that endured in quiet rather than burn in brilliance. At times, Lima would protest with the flick of her wrist, weaving brighter colors, brighter flames into the strand. At times, Dahlia would counter, darkening the hue into something calmer, more enduring. Their work grew heated, though no words were spoken. The loom shivered beneath their tension. It was in these moments that the sensuality of their bond deepened into something perilous. They were not rivals in cruelty, but lovers in conflict, each longing for the other even as they struggled. Their fingers met in tangles of thread, their bodies leaned close, their breaths grew heavy as their desires clashed.
Every touch was a negotiation, every gaze a battle between surrender and control. The looms sang louder in their hands, as though echoing their unspoken yearning. Mortals felt the consequences. Some lived lives ablaze with sudden, desperate passion, lovers united against all reason, only to fall into ruin when sustenance failed. Others lived lives of steady wealth and comfort, yet longed for a spark that never came, their hearts aching with dreams unfulfilled. In every wedding song, in every harvest prayer, in every whispered vow beneath the stars, the mark of Lima and Dahlia's tension could be found. And still the sisters wove, bound by duty as much as by longing. Neither could abandon the loom, neither could claim victory over the other. And so their conflict deepened, stretching taut between them like a thread pulled to the point of breaking. Would love triumph over stability? Would wealth smother passion? Would passion consume the earth's abundance? None could say, for the loom itself seemed to sway between their desires, waiting, trembling, alive with suspense. It is here the myth sharpens into danger, into seduction. For harmony is fragile, and desire, when unspoken, grows restless. The sisters' bond, once serene, now quivers with the weight of envy, of attraction, of longing unsatisfied. Their eyes linger too long, their hands grasp too tightly. Their voices fall into silence, heavy with what they cannot confess. And so the question lingers, both in their hearts and in the hearts of mortals who sense the trembling of their fate. Will the balance endure, or will desire fracture the loom itself?
The loom trembled. It had never trembled before. For centuries it had borne the touch of Lima and Dahlia with balance, each goddess guiding threads with patience, with care, with the harmony of sisters bound to a single eternal purpose. But now the air around it quivered, heavy with longing and unspoken fire. The threads themselves seemed to sense the change, glowing, writhing, resisting the steady rhythm that had once bound them. It began with a look, Lima's gaze lingering longer than it should have, on Dahlia's lips, on the curve of her neck, on the firm strength of her shoulders bent toward the loom. Dahlia felt it, and her body warmed with a shiver she did not name. Their hands met above a strand of gold, and the brush of fingers was not accidental. It lingered, it pressed, it sent a current through both of them that made the loom quiver under their touch. A single mortal thread lay stretched between them, shining with the promise of a great love that Lima had spun. It burned bright, fragile, and beautiful, destined for two souls to find one another in a fleeting moment of passion. But when Dahlia's fingers closed over it, she pulled, grounding it, reshaping it, weaving in the weight of harvest, the solidity of a home, the permanence of a family that would endure. Their hands clashed. The thread glowed hot between them, twisting under the force of two wills. The loom sang, not with its usual hum, but with a sound like thunder in the distance. The air thickened, breath
quickened. Lima leaned closer, her lips parting, her eyes dark with desire and defiance. "Let it burn," her voice whispered, not a command, but a plea, sensual and trembling with hunger. Dahlia's reply was not spoken in words, but in the tightening of her grip, in the steady press of her body leaning against Lima's. Her breath touched Lima's cheek, warm, grounding, irresistible. "No," she murmured, her voice low as the earth, "let it endure." The golden thread writhed between them like a living thing, pulled taut by passion and resistance, glowing brighter with every heartbeat. Their fingers tangled, their hands pressed together as though fighting, as though embracing. The loom shuddered, its wooden frame creaking under the force of their desire.
The threads around them began to stir. What had once been an ordered tapestry now shifted, tangled, unraveled. Destinies trembled, unraveling like garments torn open by impatient hands. Across the earth, mortals gasped in sudden confusion. Lovers who had once walked steadily toward each other stumbled into unexpected partings. Families who had once known security felt their wealth slip away. Passions ignited where none had been fated, and stable homes crumbled into longing. The whole world pulsed with the collision of the sisters' powers. Yet neither goddess could stop. Their hands moved as though possessed, weaving and unweaving, pulling and pushing, fingers brushing, grasping, clinging. The loom became not only their work, but their battlefield, their embrace. Their breaths grew shallow, their lips so near that the air between them crackled with electricity. Laima's eyes shimmered with fire, Dahlia's with earth's unyielding depth. Each fought not only for mortals, but for herself, for the desire to shape, to dominate, to surrender. The tension broke in a rush of sensation. Laima's hand slipped, and for a moment her palm pressed fully into Dahlia's hand. Their fingers locked. The golden thread flared with light, so bright it blinded them both. The loom cracked, its frame splitting, threads snapping free into the air. And in that shattering came release. They collided, not as rivals, not as sisters, but as women, overcome by the storm they had unleashed. Laima's lips met Dahlia's in a kiss that burned hotter than the threads themselves, a kiss that tasted of longing, of envy, of surrender. Dahlia's arms encircled her, strong, grounding, pulling her close as even the loom collapsed around them. Their bodies pressed together, breath mingling, hearts racing, desire spilling out like spilled grain across a field. The cosmos trembled, stars flickered, rivers surged against their banks. Mortals clutched their chests as passion and grief flooded their lives in equal measure. Weddings dissolved into tears, while strangers were swept into sudden embraces. Fields blossomed overnight, only to wither at dawn. The balance between abundance and desire, between wealth and passion, blurred into chaos. And at the center of it all were Laima and Dahlia, locked in each other's arms, caught in the storm of their own making.
Silence fell after the storm, a silence deeper than any the loom had ever known. The air was thick with the scent of scorched threads, of wood splintered and burned, of destinies unraveled. Where once the steady rhythm of weaving had filled eternity with its song, now there was only breath, the heavy, uneven breath of Laima and Dahlia, still entwined, still trembling from the collision of passion and power. The loom lay broken between them, its frame cracked, its strings tangled like the hair that now clung to their damp cheeks. In that wreckage they saw not defeat, but truth. They had both tried to claim destiny as their own, both fought to shape mortals in their image. Laima through fire of fleeting passion, Dahlia through earth of enduring fortune. Yet in their struggle they had revealed something undeniable. Neither love nor wealth, neither fire nor soil could rule alone. Laima's fingers brushed over Dahlia's hand, tracing scars left by the snapped threads. The goddess of fate's touch lingered, softer now, reverent where once it had been insistent. "We have broken what we were sworn to guard," she whispered, her voice heavy with guilt, but also with longing, for she did not regret all that had passed. Dahlia lifted her gaze, her eyes the color of fertile soil after rain, her lips curved into a faint, weary smile. "Or perhaps," she said, "we have shown it something new." Her hand closed over Laima's, grounding her once more, anchoring her fire to something that could endure. The tapestry of mortals was torn, yes, but not destroyed. The threads hung in disarray, glimmering in the air as though awaiting new hands. Where once there had been rigid order, now there was openness, possibility, a field both dangerous and fertile. Some threads grew brighter, infused with the passion Laima had forced into them. Others grew steadier, thicker, wrapped in the permanence Dahlia had woven. And some, oh some, shone with both, trembling with the beauty and the burden of love entwined with abundance, desire balanced by stability.
The kiss deepened. It was not tender alone. It was fierce, desperate, hungry. Laima's fingers tangled in Dahlia's hair, pulling, demanding. Dahlia's hands roamed Laima's body as though claiming her, grounding her fire with earth's weight. Their lips broke apart only to find each other again, as if the world would end if they ever stopped. And perhaps, in that moment, it did. For the loom was no longer weaving. The tapestry lay in ruin, threads tangled, destinies unwritten. Yet even amidst destruction, there was creation. Their union, their collision was itself a weaving of a different kind. Passion and permanence, fire and soil, tenderness and strength. Together they bound themselves not through duty, but through desire. Their bodies pressed close, their moans lost in the roar of unraveling fate, they surrendered to one another fully. And in that surrender, they found a truth neither had admitted. They needed each other not only as partners of the loom, but as partners in longing, in love. The storm outside mirrored the storm within. Lightning split the sky, thunder rolled. Waves rose in seas, crashing against coasts. The earth shook as though echoing the tremor of their embrace. Mortals hid in fear, but also in awe, sensing that their lives were no longer bound by the steady rhythm they had known. The gods themselves turned their eyes away, unable to watch or unwilling to interfere. When at last their lips parted, when breath returned in ragged gasps, Laima pressed her forehead against Dahlia's. whispering, her voice breaking, her body trembling. "Do you see? Without fire, the world is hollow." Dahlia, holding her tightly, her body still shivering with the force of what they had unleashed, whispered back, "And without earth, fire burns to ash." Their words were not victory, not surrender. They were truth. They were confession. They were love entwined with rivalry, with envy, with unquenchable desire. The loom lay shattered at their feet. The tapestry of mortals hung in tatters. Yet in their arms, in their kiss, in their entwined bodies, a new kind of weaving had been born. Not the ordered rhythm of duty, but the chaotic beauty of passion and surrender. Intimate, cosmic, irresistible. And though the world trembled, though destinies quivered on the edge of collapse, neither goddess pulled away, for in that moment they belonged not to the loom, not to mortals, not to fate itself, but to each other. Across the mortal world, change rippled. Lovers parted, yes, but some found one another in ways they never had before. Wealth faltered in places, but in its absence, hearts grew bolder, freer. Others, once bound to brief moments of passion, now found their love rooted, enduring. Fates bent, but did not break. Humanity wept, rejoiced, longed, despaired, and through it all lived more fully, more deeply than before. The goddesses watched, their hands still clasped, their breaths slowly returning to calm. For the first time in eternity, they understood the tapestry not as perfection, but as a living thing, flawed, tangled, beautiful. Lima leaned into Dahlia, resting her head against the steadiness of her sister's shoulder. "I tried to make them burn," she admitted, her voice almost childlike, vulnerable. "I wanted them to feel every heartbeat as if it might be their last, to drown in love so fierce it would leave them trembling." Dahlia pressed her lips against Lima's temple, tender, grounding. "And I wanted them to endure," she confessed, "to find safety in Earth's embrace, to measure joy not in sparks, but in harvests, in years, in legacies left behind." She sighed, her breath stirring Lima's hair. "Perhaps we must have both. Perhaps we must have both." The admission was not surrender, nor defeat. It was reconciliation, a weaving of voices where before there had been rivalry. Their bond, though scarred by passion and sharpened by envy, was unbroken, stronger even. For now it was bound not only by duty, but by desire, not only by shared purpose, but by shared intimacy. The loom would need to be rebuilt. Together they bent to its ruins, gathering the scattered fragments of wood, the snapped and tangled threads. Their fingers brushed often, each contact a reminder of the storm they had unleashed, of the kiss that still burned on their lips. Yet now, instead of igniting chaos, the touch steadied them. Piece by piece, they restored what had been broken. The loom rose again, scarred but standing. They strung its frame with threads, some salvaged,
others newly spun, but they no longer wove with the old rhythm. Instead, their motions were slower, deliberate, listening not only to the pattern of fate, but to the rhythm of each other's breath. Lima spun threads of fire and longing. Dahlia anchored them with strands of soil and permanence. Together, they created a tapestry that was not flawless, but alive. Threads shimmering, uneven, radiant in its imperfection. Mortals felt the change. Destiny no longer bound them as tightly, no longer pressed them into paths without cracks. Choices opened before them like doors left ajar. A man destined for fleeting love might still choose steadiness. A woman promised wealth might still choose passion. Fates were still written, yes, but now with ink that blurred, with threads that could bend. Joy and sorrow walked hand in hand, just as Lima and Dahlia now did. When their work was done, the sisters stood side by side before the loom. Their hands still bore scars, their lips still tingled with the memory of fire and earth colliding. They were changed, no longer untouched keepers of fate, but women who had surrendered to longing, who had risked destruction for desire, and found in it a new kind of creation. Lima turned to Dahlia, her eyes luminous with gratitude and lingering hunger. "We cannot undo what has passed," she said softly. Dahlia's hand lifted, cupping Lima's cheek. "Nor should we," she answered, her voice steady, rich, full of earth's certainty. "It has remade us, and through us the world." Their foreheads touched, gentle now, not desperate. Their bond was not a storm any longer, but a river, still moving, still powerful, yet flowing side by side. The scars of passion would remain, reminders of what had nearly broken them and what had bound them more deeply than ever. As mortals looked up at the stars, some saw fortune glittering above them, others felt love stir like fire in their veins. Few knew the truth, that in the hands of two goddesses, fate had been reshaped, but all lived it. Every laugh, every tear, every embrace or loss carried the imprint of Lima's fire and Dahlia's earth, entwined forever in the loom that had been broken and remade. Balance had returned, though it was not the same balance as before. It was richer, heavier, touched by longing, marked by the memory of chaos. The sisters were no longer simply weavers of destiny. They were lovers of it, lovers of each other, bearers of scars that made their touch more tender, their weaving more profound. And so the world turned, fates written anew with both joy and sorrow, both wealth and passion. The goddesses remained at the loom, changed but unbroken, their bond a secret woven through every thread. For though destiny could fracture, though desire could threaten to undo all, love, in whatever form it took, could weave it together again.
What remains after storms fade? What lingers when the thunder has rolled away, when the trembling earth grows still, when the loon song softens once more into silence? The myth of Lima and Dahlia leaves us not with answers carved in stone, nor with destinies unshakably sealed, but with whispers, soft, lingering, intimate, like threads brushing against the skin before slipping away into the night. In the story of the goddesses, we glimpse a truth older than temples, older than fire, older than the weaving of fate itself, that love and longing are not enemies, but companions. Lima burned for passion, for the fierce ecstasy that makes the heart race and the body ache with need. Dahlia craved stability, the quiet abundance of fields ripening under the sun, of homes built stone by stone, of wealth not measured in coins alone, but in years shared and harvests gathered. Each believed her gift to mortals was the greater. Each fought to shape destiny in her image. Yet in their collision, in their surrender, they revealed what has always been. Neither love nor wealth, neither fire nor soil could rule alone. For what is love without the hope of endurance? A flame too bright, too brief, gone in a gust of wind. And what is wealth? What is permanence without desire to set it alight? A field that grows but never feeds the soul. Together they weave the fabric of human longing, passion and stability, joy and sorrow, fleeting kisses and lifelong bonds. Each thread carries its own weight. Some glimmer with the first blush of attraction, some bend heavy under the patience of years. Each moment of the mortal heart is a stitch, each choice a crossing of threads, every sigh a knot that ties soul to soul. Humans, too, live with this tension. Some chase desire, letting themselves be consumed by flames that burn away certainty. Others cling to security, grounding themselves in what endures even if it leaves the heart thirsty. Most wander between, swaying like reeds by a river, sometimes reaching for fire, sometimes for earth. And in that wandering lies the essence of what it means to be alive. We are not meant to know only one, but to taste both, the ecstasy of passion and the sweetness of permanence, the ache of loss and the comfort of abundance. The myth does not shy away from scars. Lima and Dahlia's loom was broken, threads snapped, destinies unraveled. Their embrace was born not of harmony alone, but of rivalry, envy, and hunger. It teaches us that desire is not always gentle. It can fracture, it can wound, it can leave us trembling. But from the ruin, something new can be born. The tapestry woven after the storm is not flawless, but it is alive, more vibrant for its cracks, more tender for its scars. For the threads that were frayed have now been joined in ways unforeseen, shimmering with both fire and earth, with both longing and endurance.
So too are we shaped by our longings, the heartbreak that leaves us raw, the passion that consumes us, the wealth that slips away, the security that steadies us. All are threads. Each leaves a mark. Each becomes part of the pattern, even when the pattern seems tangled, senseless, cruel. In time, when we step back, we may glimpse the beauty of what was woven through both joy and sorrow. Some threads glimmer unexpectedly, catching the light. Some darken, heavy with what we could not control. But each is necessary. Each is sacred. The myth of Lima and Dahlia whispers that there is no single destiny, no one true thread. There is instead a weaving, shifting, shimmering, unfinished. Desire bends it, love strengthens it, loss frays it, abundance repairs it. And through it all, we walk the edge between burning and enduring, between fleeting kisses and lifelong embraces. Even the smallest moments of our lives, the brush of a hand, the warmth of a glance, the tremor of breath in the night, are part of that weave. And when we surrender to them, when we allow the heart to feel without restraint, we become co-weavers of our own fate. It is sensual not only because of the goddess's longing, but because life itself is sensual. Every touch, every taste, every sigh of wind against skin, every harvest gathered in weary hands, these are the textures of fate. We are not spectators to destiny. We are lovers of it, partners in its weaving, just as Laima and Dahlia became partners in theirs. There is intimacy in survival, in the sharing of bread, in the exchange of whispers and glances that carry more weight than gold. And there is intimacy in passion, in fire that consumes and teaches, in the trembling of flesh and soul alike. Both are necessary. Both are divine. And so, as the tale fades, we are left not with certainty, but with invitation. To feel, to risk, to love, knowing it may wound, to build, knowing it may crumble, to kiss, even if the lips you kiss may one day part, to plant, even if the harvest may fail. Desire is inevitable, loss is inevitable, but so too is beauty, so too is joy, so too is the fullness of living. In every thread that slips between our fingers, there is both danger and delight. In every choice to reach or to stay, there is meaning. In every heartbeat that quickens for love, there is the echo of Laima's whispers. In every hand that labors, there is the grounding weight of Dahlia's touch. Laima whispers in your ear, burn, live, surrender to the fire of longing. Dahlia breathes at your neck, endure, stay, root yourself in what can last. Between them, between fire and earth, between fleeting passion and lasting abundance, you will find yourself trembling, tender, alive. In every choice, in every ache, in every fleeting moment of delight or despair, the sisters are present, their fingers invisible upon the threads that make your life.
And when you step away from this myth, when the threads of the story fade into the darkness of your room, you will carry a trace of their touch. You will feel the weight of longing in your chest, the ache of memory in your hands. You will know that fate is not beyond you, but within you, waiting for your breath, your choice, your desire to weave it into being. The echo of the loom will linger in your bones, a gentle, unrelenting pulse, reminding you that passion and permanence, fire and earth, joy and abundance all move together in delicate, unending rhythm. This is the gift of the myth, the final lesson whispered in its fading threads, that no destiny is complete without feeling, that no life is full without longing, that every human heart is both flame and soil. Loss is as necessary as love, as necessary as abundance. Desire is as inevitable as the setting sun. The threads that bind us are not always visible, but they are always felt. They shimmer, they tremble, they whisper secrets we will never fully understand. But in feeling them, we understand ourselves. And so we are left with the soft, lingering hum of possibility. The story does not close with certainty, but with sensation, an awareness that the loom continues, that desire continues, that life continues, threaded through with both fire and earth. We carry the myth in our bodies, in our hearts,
in the subtle movements of longing and care that shape every day. Every sigh, every touch, every heartbeat is a thread connecting us to all that has come before and all that will come after. Close your eyes and listen. Do you hear it? The faint hum of a loom rebuilt, the soft sigh of threads sliding across one another. It is the sound of passion and permanence, of joy and sorrow, of desire unending. It is the sound of your own heart, weaving. The night deepens. Threads shimmer in darkness, invisible but alive, brushing softly against your skin, caressing your senses, whispering secrets you cannot yet name. You feel the lingering warmth of Lima's fire, the grounding weight of Delia's earth. You feel the promise of love and the comfort of abundance coiling around your soul. In the quiet, the tapestry stretches infinitely, endlessly, inviting, intimate. It is unfinished, unending, sensual and alive. And as sleep draws near, as thoughts fade into the tender darkness, the threads fade too, but not gone. They linger in your chest, in your fingertips, in the quiet spaces between heartbeats, a whisper of something eternal. Desire, longing, love, abundance, they are always present, and you are never truly alone.